Now let's talk about these lenses. We'll start with Zeiss because I feel bad that every year that we've been doing this, and it's been many, many years, we always went in alphabetical order, and that put Zeiss last. So this year we'll start with Snehal, Patel, and after that we'll resort to our normal alphabetical order.
Thanks for having me.
Okay.
I was going to say that the first part of the presentation will be relevant for any of the manufacturers, and then we'll also get into product quickly as well. But since this is from the buyer's perspective, we want to make sure that buyers understand what's going on. And of course, in our industry, not everyone's a buyer. They don't necessarily purchase the equipment; they use it. They're the end user, but someone has to make that purchase, and usually that involves mating camera and lenses together. So that's what we're going to talk about. Here's a smattering of some more recent projects that have been done with Zeiss Supreme Primes and Zeiss Supreme Prime Radiance lenses. Almost all of these projects are actually full frame or full frame plus, let's call it, in size. So definitely we're seeing the larger formats have hit and made a big splash, and which is really cool to see. I'd just like to say that even though I'm going to give you a presentation, and since I'm from Zeiss, if you want a third-party opinion, we have Matt Duclos with us today as one of the co-hosts. And also, if you look on YouTube under Duclos Lenses, you will find a nice video that Matt did that went over all the different Zeiss lenses that are available for cinema, including photography lenses that people use for video applications or specialty applications. So he's done a review as well, and I encourage you to take a look at that because it's always nice to get someone else's opinion. So let's talk about formats, because this is what it's all about. When you're looking today to get lenses and made them to cameras, you really have to understand formats. You have to understand where they come from and why we have them and what it means today, because digital is different than film. Film, we had more stringent standards because of the way that things were shot, processed, and then displayed. So we had a still format where the film ran sideways in a 35mm still camera. And then we had motion picture film that traditionally ran up and down to go with gravity to help get past the gate, with your film plane. And that's why the motion picture film full aperture was about 1.6 times smaller than still film. Now, there were some interesting formats that came out of this. So if you look on the bottom row, the 35mm Academy 4-perf was 22/16. But then, Paramount Studios figured out a way to run film sideways in a camera without it getting bound up or caught up in the mechanics. And so therefore, the 8-perf horizontal VistaVision format was born. And you could see the size of the dimensions of that is 37/25 approximately. Keep that number in mind because you're going to see the next slide and I'll show you something. But look, there's also larger formats like 65mm. So Alexa 65 is about the size of 65mm film. And then there's 70mm IMAX. So there's a lot of large formats that were in filming. Today, the two most popular formats are around Super 35 size and then full frame size, approximately. The Alexa 65 is an outlier. It's a larger format altogether, and there's limited lenses for that. Certainly, there aren't any manufacturers mass producing lenses for those systems. So as you saw, Airy Rental, for example, does make some custom solutions, including their new set of anamorphic lenses, which is a modified master anamorphics that they create these larger formats for. Let's talk about all the popular sensors that are out there. So in digital sensors, we have a lot of sizes, and they're not all consistent. So even though Red Monstro calls itself the VV, in reality, if you remember the numbers I just told you, 35/23, the Alexa LF and the Sony Venice are closer to the traditional VistaVision format that Paramount came up with that you could still rent from Panavision, actually. So those are the approximate sizes where lenses were designed for, like the Supreme Prime CP3s, our CZ2 Cinema Zooms. But we just happen to have full frame plus coverage on our primes, so you can use them on a sensor like the Red Monstro and the Alexa LF very easily without having any dark corners or anything like that. With the zoom, you'll have a little bit more trouble, so you're going to have to reduce the resolution just slightly. So as you can see with those pink circles, if you can go back, Chris, as you can see with those pink circles, if you can put that lens on this large sensor, you can put that same lens on anything smaller than it, and it will work. and it'll give you the same magnification, but you're going to see a different crop, okay? And we'll explain that in the next slide. But if you use something smaller, like the green circle, Super 35 coverage, you're going to have trouble using it on sensors that are larger. So it's a three-step process when you're a customer or an end user. Number one, what sensor size am I recording in? Number two, will my lenses fit to that sensor size? And number three, let's test. Because if you look at it from the red Gemini down to the Blackmagic Pocket 6K in the third row, all those sensors are marketed as Super 35, and none of them are the size of Super 35, okay? So that means every time you put a camera or a lens on any of these cameras, that same exact lens will give you slightly different frames on each one of those cameras. So you have to test to understand exactly what is happening or why it happens. So the next slide shows you an extreme example of a very wide lens that will porthole if not, if you go beyond an image circle. So let's say on the left side, a lens designed for full frame, and this is a wide lens, right? That's designed for full frame. We'll be able to, you can use smaller sensors. So you can use a crop sensor with that lens very easily. This happens all the time in photography and cinematography. It's been happening for, 100 years, where we can have a larger image circle coverage, but we can use a smaller sensor or a smaller film plane. But the reverse is not true. So on the right side, if you design a lens that only has a certain smaller image circle and doesn't have a lot of glass or isn't designed to have a large image circle, you'll be limited as to what sensors you can use that on. This is an overlay with the same exact image with the different crops. So look at the full frame right there. That's what the Cinema Zoom is qualified for, is full frame. So we have full frame plus, and Super 35. These are the three that we're going to talk about. So you can see that if I use a crop sensor, I'm just going to see less of that woman. And if I use a larger sensor, I'm going to see more of that woman. The lens is not going to change. The lens doesn't know or care what sensor you're putting on it. It will give you the same image circle regardless. It's just the sensor that's seeing more or less of that projected image, because that lens will project the exact same image circle on any camera into the cavity of where the sensor is. And then the sensor, depending on the size, will see more or less of that image. So let's talk about what Zeiss has available, okay? So Zeiss has full frame and full frame plus lenses, and of course, Super 35 lenses, right? So again, here's a Zeiss Radiance, which is our flagship. It's a supreme prime lens with a fantastic, interesting new look with blue flare characteristics. Optional LPL if you want, but it comes native as a PL mount lens. It provides a very consistent flare characteristic. So if you like vintage looks and you like vintage lenses, here's a lens series that all 11 focal length lenses actually give you matching flare characteristics. So if you go from one magnification to the other without moving the camera, it's almost like you're using a zoom lens that's exactly the same, and you're seeing the same flare characteristics all the way through the whole, all the focal lengths. And magnifications are really important. The more magnifications you have, the more choices you give your cinematographer creatively what they can do. So having a full 11 lens set of matched flares is unlike any lens set that's ever been created, because there has been no vintage lens set that is so consistent. You can get old lens sets and maybe one focal length will give you a beautiful flare, another one will give you nothing, and it was a hit or miss, and really was because those were flaws in the coatings. This is different. We designed the coatings to enact these blue flare characteristics. So we can go to the next slide and play a quick teaser from...
The job of a cinematographer is to choose the elements and the tools you're going to use to tell a story, to help tell a story. R&R actually means receive and release. Prisoners are admitted in and parolees are let out. The image that came to my mind was of a person leaving prison and seeing out the windows as a person's walking down the hallway, and the flare that would cause. And the flare represents many things in this case, but maybe it's hope, maybe it's the sun outside. It's something to reach for. So the light sources became a very, very important point of the story, and the lenses allowed me to utilize the characteristics of them for storytelling. My name is Rodrigo Prieto, and I was the director and cinematographer of R&R.
So real quick, full frame plus, meaning you could use it on the red Monstro sensor and anything smaller than it. And you can test out for yourself to see what image you're going to get on any size. You can use it on Alexa Mini. You can use it on Super 35, F55 cameras. red helium, or you can use them on the larger sensors, Monstro, Lexa LF, and Sony Venice, which are great combinations for the lenses. So here we have the Supreme Prime lenses. Supreme Prime lenses, we have 13 focal lengths from 18 to 200. So 2 more focal lengths, the 150 and 200 compared to the Radiance lenses. Again, full frame plus, meaning you can use them larger sensors and smaller sensors and use them, any way that you want. These are very popular. They're really a go-to choice for a lot of rentals in terms of commercials, music videos, lots and lots of TV shows, especially Netflix and Hulu, HBO Max, and network shows, and then also for feature films. So it's a great versatile lens series. We find that a lot of rental houses will supply modified versions of the Supreme Primes because they're a nice clean base to start from. So people like modding the lenses to dumb them down a little bit, maybe have the focus fall off more drastically from the center to the edge of the frame, maybe have a little bit more lifted blacks by changing some of the material inside the lens from a dark matte black finish to something that's a little bit lighter, or changing out the front element and putting on a different coating in the front element that's almost like a filtered effect. These kinds of modifications are very popular with the Supreme Primes. They're a hot roddable lens, it's a very great base to start from. But, most of the people will use it as a clean lens and then add filtration and LUTs to create their look that they want. And you can get a really wide variety of looks and a lot of focal lengths, a lot of magnification. LPL mount is also optional on this one. Just a quick cut of the reel. And you can just see that it's very versatile. You can make it look like anything you want. So Supreme Prime lenses, of course, used on lots of TV shows and movies. I'll show you where you can find the playlist on YouTube where you can see a lot of trailers, commercials from all over the world for different shows. Now let's talk about the CP3s. Also full frame plus, has that little bit extra coverage, can be used on any of these sensors that we talked about up to the Monstro size. And CP3s come from a nice pedigree. There were the CP1s and then the CP2s, which were widely popular. The CP1 and 2 together sold 30,000 pieces worldwide. It's one of the most popular cinema lenses in the whole world. It's basically, you can find it in any rental house, a wide variety of rental houses from your top end to your mid-range, and also online. A lot of people are using these lenses, and people are starting to discover just how nice and clean and awesome the CP3 are. In the kind of price point that they are in and the package they're in, they're very lightweight. They're affordable and also used for a lot of specialty applications in drones, in handheld, or doing gimbal work or car work or just crash cams, because they give you really great optical performance. They're slightly older optical designs in comparison to Supremes and Radiance, so I would say they give you more classic kind of roundedness, chromatic aberrations, and looks of Zeiss lenses. So if you like classic Zeiss lenses, and you like the beauty of, like, let's say T21 super speeds or anything else that you've used, like still lenses, older still lenses, for example, like the ZE or ZFs, you're going to like some of these optical designs. There are some new optical designs in the series, but they're all color matched. There's interchangeable lens mount. So, unlike a lot of lenses, you can change to any of these 5 formats: EF mount, Canon, Micro Four Thirds, PL mount, Nikon, and Sony E mount. You could do it yourself. It takes about 5 minutes. We have training videos online. And a lot of rental houses buy, the E mount and the EF mount options so they can swap them out. It's quite affordable. So to show you on an FX9 camera, we have a trailer for. You're looking for a nice, pretty lens that's neutral in terms of the color balance and gives you great performance, a nice focus, and a great fall off in a small little package. There's nothing better than the CP3s. It's a really great lens. Now let's go to the cinema zooms, CZ2 cinema zooms. These are full frame, so I don't have full frame plus listed here. Keep that in mind. This means that on a Monstro, you will have to go down to 7.5K to get a full clean image. Alexa LF in open gate, you might get a little bit dark corners on some of the focal lengths, but if you just went to the regular recording, you'd be fine, and works perfectly fine with the Sony Venice or anything smaller than that. People have been using this lens on everything from micro four thirds to super 35 to, to full frame. And now because full frame is such a popular format, we're really seeing a resurgence of the demand of these lenses because there's not a lot of small options out there that are affordable. These are between 20 and 26,000 each. So a package of all three is like 65K. That's quite affordable for a rental to keep and always send out with Steadicam or with gimbals or any kind of specialty apps. A lot of people like using the 70 to 200 for reality shows and unscripted. Also, sports. We're seeing the 28 to 80, 15 to 30 a lot in sports applications, especially now that Sony Venice is out there because Sony's always been strong in the sports arena. And then also we have Alexa Amiras, Area Miras, Minis, and Mini LFs hitting the field too. So we're starting to see these formats become really important. Of course, Red's been there already with the Helium and the Monstro. So great choices, great choice for a neutral look. It's not going to be as perfect of an image as you would get in a prime lens, but what you get in the zoom is a really beautiful combination of everything. Great look, Zeiss quality, and also usability and really the practicality of having a zoom. We do have, aside from the 5 mounts that we have also for the CP3, the EF, F micro four thirds, PL, F mount, and E mount. We also have LPL available for this, so you can go native on Alexa LF and LF Mini. So we got the lightweight zoom. This one is Super 35. So this one's limited to a smaller sensor size. And so I've marked it as Super 35. You can use this on formats that are slightly bigger than Super 35, but certainly not the full frame or full frame plus. Again, with the interchangeable mount system, excellent range, lightweight. It's only like 4.5 pounds. Great price point, about 11K US. Really affordable and quite usable. We do have a zoom motor from Croziel that sells with this as well. And we can go to the next slide, which is just a quick clip. And then the last slide just shows you resources. You can go to Zeiss cinematography page, zeiss.com/cine, C-I-N-E. Will take you to a quick jump to get there. And then our YouTube channel, Zeiss Cinematography YouTube channel. Look at the playlist. They're already labeled by lens. So you can see all the different aspects of, or different shoots that are done with these lenses. For example, there's like almost 200 videos in the Supreme Prime playlist. So go ahead and take a look at that when you get a chance to see what people make with the lenses. Thank you so much for my time.
Thank you.